Sunday morning, March 20th, 2022. I finished baseball photos. 6 episodes on baseball photos. I talked about Hall of Famers. I showed you a photo, which a picture is better than 1,000 words, and talked about some achievements they had. I'm going to start a new series of episodes. This is going to be classic. I hope you stay tuned for this because I've done 426 episodes, mostly on baseball, a few other topics. This time, I'm going to really delve into comparisons. What do I mean? I'm going to take two Hall of Famers and I'm going to compare their stats. Who is the better player? Now, how do I do this? Well, similar players, I'm going to have a contest between them and list all their categories of each player, who comes out on top. It's like a versus. First group I'm going to do, Ty Cobb, and who should I match him up with? Who comes the closest to Ty Cobb in stats? Pete Rose. So Ty Cobb versus Pete Rose. Who's better? Interesting, I did some research on this. All right, we know Pete Rose has the most hits, 4,256. So he wins in hits, total hits. So chalk one up for Pete. That's one. Ty Cobb had 4,189. Batting average. We know Cobb wins. So chalk one up for Cobb. So it's 1-1. Because Pete Rose had 303, Cobb 366. Following me? Batting titles. Ty Cobb 12, Pete Rose 3. So Ty Cobb leads 2-1. Doubles. Who wins? Cobb had 724 career doubles. Rose had 746. Chalk one up for Pete. The score is tied 2-2. Triples. Cobb had 295. Pete Rose had 135. Chalk one up for Cobb. 3-2 Cobb. Home runs. Cobb had 117. Rose 160. So Rose wins. Score is tied 3-3. Strikeouts. Cobb had 680 in his career. Pete Rose had 1,143. Cobb wins. 4-3 Cobb. On base percentage, career. Cobb 433. Pete Rose 375. Cobb wins. 5-3 Cobb. Slugging. Cobb 512 slugging career. Pete Rose 409. Cobb is ahead 6-3. RBIs. Cobb had 1,944 career. Pete Rose 1,314. Cobb is winning 7-3. At bats. Cobb 11,440 career. Pete Rose 14,053. Chalk one up for Pete. 7-4 Cobb. Games. Cobb 3,034 career games. Pete Rose 3,562. Give one to Pete. Score 7-5 Cobb. Runs scored career. Cobb 2,245. Pete Rose 2,165. Chalk it up for Cobb. 8-5 Cobb. Career stolen bases. Cobb 897. Pete Rose 198. Cobb wins. 9-5 Cobb. Walks. Cobb had 1,249 career. Pete Rose 1,566. Pete wins. 9-6 Cobb. Total bases. Cobb 5,854 career. Pete Rose 5,752. Cobb wins. Score is 10-6 Cobb. Career singles. Cobb had 3,053. Pete Rose had 3,215. Rose wins. 10-7 Cobb. 200 hit seasons. Cobb had 9. Pete Rose had 10. So Rose wins. 10-8 Cobb. Most hits in a season. Cobb had 248, his highest. Pete Rose 230. Cobb wins. 11-8 is the score. Career times on base. Cobb 5,532. Pete Rose 5,929. Rose wins. Score is 11-9 Cobb. Hitting streaks, or hitting streak, highest. Cobb had a 40-game hitting streak as best. Pete Rose, 44-game hitting streak. Rose wins. The score is 11-10 Cobb. 5-hit games. Cobb had 14. Pete had 10. So Cobb wins. 12-10 Cobb. 4-hit games. Cobb had 87 of them. Pete Rose had 73. Cobb wins. 13-10 Cobb. 3-hit games. Cobb had 399. Pete Rose had 387. Cobb wins. 14-10 Cobb. 2-hit games, multiple hit games. Cobb had 1,187 multiple hit games, 2 or more hits. Pete Rose, 1,225. So Rose wins 11. 14-11 Cobb. And then the last category I could find. Most 6 hit games. Cobb had 1. Pete didn't have 1. 15-11. Cobb wins. What do you think of that comparison? Closest person I can find to Cobb was Pete Rose. So just to recap, Cobb wins 15 categories. Pete Rose has 11 categories. Where did Cobb win? Cobb won in batting, career batting average, batting titles, triples, fewest strikeouts, on base, slugging, RBIs, runs scored, stolen bases, total bases, most hits in a season, career times on base, most hits in a season, and then most 5-hit games, most 4-hit games, most 3-hit games, and 1 6-hit game. Now it's 15 categories. Where did Pete Rose win? He won in career hits. He won in doubles, homers, at-bats, games played, walks, most singles, most 10-hit games, most career times on base, highest hitting streak, and most multiple hit games. But the final analysis, if you compare Ty Cobb and Pete Rose, Cobb wins 15 categories and Pete Rose wins 11. You got to give it to Pete Rose for having the most hits, also the best hitting streak. I think he dominated there, and the times on base. But you got to give it to Cobb for the highest batting average career and the most batting titles. Also, you got to give it to him in RBIs, runs scored, total bases. and most hits in a season. Interesting analysis, don't you think? Who am I going to do next? You know what? I'm going to do a lot of these players, try to get the closest players to each other and compare their stats and see who wins, see if there's any ties. So that's the first comparison I'm doing. The next one, you got to do Babe Ruth. And who should I compare him to? How about Hank Aaron? Babe Ruth versus Hank Aaron. Who wins in the categories? That'll be an interesting discussion. We'll talk to you later. I'm out.